Pacific Rugby referees are being told they probably won't officiate at the World Cup until 2031 or later, unless something drastically changes at World Rugby. Questions have been asked about whether referee bias accounts for yellow and red cards against Pacific players at this year's tournament. But past and current Pacific Rugby referees say even if it's not bias, there's still plenty of hurdles to jump for Pacific unions and their referees. Alex Perrottet reports.
It was 1995 and Etoni Tonga was running the line as an assistant referee at the historic Rugby World Cup in South Africa. The Tongan wasn't out in the middle, and after that tournament, no official from the Pacific has even got close.
We were assistant referees. We were on sidelines. After 95, the game went professional. They got rid of the referees that were up and coming and just contracted the new ones. From there, there's never looked in the Pacific Islands anymore.
Pacific referees have made it to the top in sevens rugby, but there's very little experience in international 15-a-side games, simply because Pacific nations aren't included in those elite international tournaments. Goli Sewambu is the National Development Manager for the Fiji Rugby Union and has his 5 top referees in a high-performance unit. They want to eventually get to the World Cup. He has a mix of men and women and says diversity is important.
If you look at the composition of refs in the World Cup, a lot of them are the ones who are competing in top-level rugby, and there's not many of them. It's just spread between a number of countries.
Tui Komiti is a Samoan sevens referee and manages the Samoan referees. He also has 5 top referees in his high-performance unit, but says they have a mountain to climb.
Pacific referees will never get a chance to referee a Tier 1 test match unless you reside in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa.
That's because the Pacific nations are shut out of the major international tournaments, such as Super Rugby, the Rugby Championship or the Six Nations. And referees suffer just as much as players. They have to travel overseas to get a look in. Etoni Tonga's refereeing days are over, and now he's the new chair of the Tonga Rugby Union Referees Association. He says he feels the goalposts keep changing.
They keep on changing the rules for us. As soon as we got somebody close into there, they changed something. So 8 years ago, we had about 5 or 6 young referees, but then when I left the association, something fell apart here internally, which wasn't followed through, so it was a bit disappointing.
The man tasked with training and developing those Pacific referees, Talemu Waqa from Oceania Rugby, says the Australian and New Zealand unions do give opportunities in their domestic competitions for Pacific referees, but it will take time to get to the top. At this World Cup, 17 yellow cards have been issued so far, 5 of them earned by Samoa alone. That's led some to hint that there might be some bias against Pacific players at the Rugby World Cup. After all, out of the 12 referees, there's 2 Englishmen, 4 Frenchmen, a Welshman, a South African, 2 New Zealanders and 2 Australians. But Talemu Waqa says it's not bias. He says the Pacific referees that he's training are actually too soft on judging ill discipline. He's just carried out training in Cook Islands with a group of top Pacific referees and played a series of videoed incidents asking them whether they would give just a penalty or a yellow card or a red card. And he said many of them got it wrong.
Surprisingly, we are very soft on it. Most of our referees, when it's supposed to be a yellow, they're giving a penalty. When it's supposed to be a red, they're still giving a yellow. Our players are then refereed by what we call a soft approach. They are not refereed as tough as New Zealand referees do, and Australian referees do, and the Europe referees do.
The Pacific referees we spoke to are getting on in age, and they say World Rugby is looking for younger referees to invest in. Eva Muffy is a Tongan sevens rugby referee and says it's too late for him to break into the 15-a-side game.
A little bit disappointed somehow, because I was thinking that I'm doing well, and a few coaches talked to me about my progress, and I was trying hard and train locally, but once there's no chance, that's it.
Goli Sewambu from Fiji says the problem is young people want to play the game rather than blow the whistle, and says his current crop are overworked already on home soil.
It's 1 referee to 6 games every Saturday, which has taken a toll on them physically and emotionally as well. So what we've done is we've tried to do a lot of recruitment over the last few months.
Tui Komiti says World Rugby could and should do more to help the Pacific.
World Rugby should have invest in terms of assisting that exposure of referees, help out with financially support, sending these referees outside of the Pacific.
World Rugby and other national rugby bodies were asked for comment but declined while the Rugby World Cup is ongoing. Talemu Waqa says Argentine and Japanese referees will have a smoother way forward because they're involved in those international tournaments. And he has a wake-up call for those hoping to see Pacific referees out on the field at the next tournament.
I don't see any referee from the Pacific in the next 4 years, not in the next World Cup. Argentina maybe. Pacific, I'll go for 12 years to 16 years, then we could find one up there.
That's 2031 or even as late as 2035. For Checkpoint, Alex Perrottet.